Thank you for joining me today for our daily devotion. Today we're reading from the book of Acts, Acts 16:35 to the end of the chapter. And what we're going to read today comes immediately following Paul and Silas' escape from jail. That's important because we kind of start in the middle of the story. When morning came, the magistrate sent the police saying, "Let these men go." And the jailer reported this message to Paul, saying, "The magistrate sent word to let you go. Therefore, come out now and go in peace." But Paul replied, "They have beaten us in public, uncondemned, men who are Roman citizens, and have thrown us into prison. And now they're going to discharge us in secret? Certainly not. Let them come and take us out themselves." The police reported these words to the magistrates, and they were afraid when they heard that they were Roman citizens. So they came and apologized to them, and they took them out and asked them to leave the city. After leaving the prison, they went to Lydia's home, and when they had seen and encouraged the brothers and sisters there, they departed. I can't decide if this brings me hope or just makes me shake my head because humans and the way we treat each other haven't really changed much in the 2,000 years since this happened. This story is a story about people in power making a grievous mistake that they could make because they were in power and nobody's going to call them out on them. And then when they realized they had made a mistake, they tried to kind of cover it up, hide it, not admit to it, just sort of make it right without having to admit anything. Does that sound familiar at all? I'm not even going to try and name a particular area or idea or political party that does that all the time, because you know exactly a particular person or situation today that fits this model. We are surrounded by people in power who want to stay in power and will do anything and everything to save face because they're worried that if they admit who they are, if they admit the mistakes they've made, that it might cost them some of their power. This is a really unfortunate place for a person to find themselves. It has to be difficult to have that little faith and that little confidence in the position that you find yourself in. It could possibly come from the fact that you got to that position of power through some, ill means or through some wheeling and dealing that wasn't quite moral or ethical. And that, unfortunately, is a reality of today, just as much as it was a reality back in the days of Paul and Silas. But I also see inside of that, those people in power really struggling with self-confidence. And I really mean it when I say that I feel badly for people who have to be in power because without that, they have no value internally. Now, I can't always get to there in the worst days. And I'm sure that if I were Paul or Silas, I would really struggle to think the best of or even feel pity for the people who threw me in jail unjustly. But Paul and Silas call them out. And I hope that we can see more circumstances where we get to see people called out, not for the comeuppance, not because of karma, whatever you want to call it, but because injustice needs to be named by the people who have at least some power. Because this situation is a little bit unique. Paul was a Roman citizen, so he was both Jewish and Roman, and that gave him particular rights and particular power in certain circumstances. It didn't give him enough power to not get thrown in jail in the first place, but once he was in jail, when they let him out, he was able to use his privilege as being a Roman citizen to point out what they've done wrong, to point out that they were working unjustly within a system that was completely unjust. And I think that's what we need to be able to do. We definitely do have power and privilege. I mean, even the fact that you are watching this over the internet means that you are well ahead of a significant number of people on this planet. So you do have privilege. I don't know much more about you, but I talk about where I come from. I am male, I am white, I am educated, I speak English, I am straight. There's a whole list of places in which I have quite a bit of privilege. Things that I didn't do anything to earn, no more than Paul earned being a Roman. He was just born that way. And so I know that for me, I need to use every opportunity that I can to use the power that I have because of privilege to call out the other powers, the other injustices that are happening with people who have power. And it could be people with more power than me, but let's be honest, there's a good chance that I'm seeing injustice that is being imposed upon people who have less privilege and less power than I do. It's awfully hard for somebody who is in the bottom of injustice to point it out. So those of us who have power or privilege of any sort, it's our job, it's our responsibility to maybe even risk some of that privilege to name the places where we see injustice. Name the places where we see people in power who are using that power in unjust ways. People who are creating systems or perpetuating systems that are created to keep people down. And it's really, really a balancing act. As we're calling out power, as we're naming the people and the circumstances that we see that are unjust, we need to be careful not to throw blame. That doesn't really help. We can say this person did a thing that was unjust, but we know as little about them as they know about us. We can't assume that we know everything. In fact, what we need to do is assume that we know nothing. It could be that they are forced into a situation that they didn't ask for as well. They might have power or decision-making thrust upon them that they don't have any choice around. Or perhaps if they don't make these particular decisions, then they're going to lose their ability to make money and feed their families. There are all sorts of levels and layers involved. So what we need to do is name the places where we see injustice without slipping into name calling and blaming. I like that in this circumstance, they do exactly that. They make fun of, there's definitely some tongue-in-cheek discussion here, but they're making fun of the situation, not the people. When they are let free and told to go on their way, they say, wait a minute. You dragged our names through the mud. You charged us and threw us in jail without any reason. And yet now when you realize you've made a mistake, you want to let us go on the sly? No, you need to come down here and you need to apologize. You need to be as public to clear our names as you were public to smear us. Do you notice how that is different than saying anything that is blaming or anything that is ill-natured or directed at the people who did it? Because what I see, unfortunately, is a lot of our political discourse, a lot of our justice seeking is wrapped up in trying to tear somebody else down in the process. I'm not saying that makes us as bad as the unjust systems, but it certainly doesn't make us good. We can use these models, especially in the times when we really want to blame somebody else or blame some entire system. It's much, much better for us to identify the injustices, bring them to light, work with them within whatever power and privilege that we have, and bring light to them. That's a much healthier way of doing it. And in the long run, even though it might feel good to see somebody else be drawn down because they were the ones that hurt you, it might seem like that feels good, but in the long run, that retribution doesn't actually give us any benefit. In fact, holding on to those grudges is only unhealthy for us. Holding a grudge against somebody who has done you wrong, it's kind of like drinking poison yourself and expecting them to die. I can't remember whose illustration that is. I'm not going to claim that it's mine, but I remember when I read that, I thought that is the best example, the best description of a grudge that I can think of. So we have to fight against the injustice and the power and the power imbalances without becoming people who just sling mud or call names or tear people down. Let's fix broken systems and recognize that people have their own damages and their own difficulties in their own life that led them to where they are. Let's pray. Jesus, you call each and every one of us to use everything at our disposal to right the wrongs in this world. You lived an example by showing up in the places where you weren't really supposed to by the social norms of the day. You also got yourself into trouble when you called out the powerful people, whether it was part of the political structures or the religious structures or the way the two of them worked together. You were willing to take the little bit of privilege that you had, the little bit of power that you had, and use it to fight for the people who had less. Name aloud to the people in power how they were missing the point. Shine the light on injustices. And in the midst of it, you continued to forgive the people who were making the choices that led to your death. Jesus, you set the bar high, and we strive to fit your model as we use our own power and privilege to shine the light into the dark and unjust corners in our world. We're going to need your courage. We're going to need your confidence and your wisdom. And yes, we're going to need your conviction to help keep us fighting for justice, fighting to build up people who have been torn down, fighting to level the playing field that all might receive what they need. Jesus, we ask you to continue to guide us, to walk with us, and to give us strength in all this. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me once again. If you're looking for past daily devotionals, you can click here. Actually, click over there. It'll give you the whole playlist, and you can pick and choose which one you'd like to watch. Thank you so much. I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.